Good morning, everyone. Kate and Fiona Pearman joining you for this week's live, where we're digging into the whole conversation around career crisis, which, if there is one certainty in life, that at some point, at some time, in some stage of your career, you will come up against what we call this career crisis. And I think it's firstly really useful to distinguish between whether we're going through a crisis or it's just a bit of a rough patch. And I think people feed can sometimes oscillate here for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I think it's really important to distinguish between these two things because we could throw the baby out with the bathwater. If it's just a rough patch and we could potentially get through it, that's different than actual real crisis, which needs addressing in a different way. And look, a rough patch generally, the signals for this are you've got a certain amount of challenge. You might be feeling overwhelmed. Often it's external circumstances. It might be, pressure for a timeline of a project, or, there's a big sales quarter that you need to look after, or it's end of financial year. But usually you can see some light at the end of the tunnel. And look, there's usually a short-term learning curve. You can hold on. You might need some more resources. You might need a bit of help, but you can normally find a way through. And I think, it feels ultimately as though this could be solved. I could get through this. It's hard, but I could get there.
Yeah, I think just that piece around there's something I'm getting from this. I'm learning. There's light at the end of the tunnel if I just hold on. In finance, we used to say after end of financial year, after year end, or after this quarter, right, and the sales target. So I think there's a whole lot more energy that sits within a rough patch, and there's a whole lot more possibility in terms of solutions, because whether it's short term, we can have a solution, or whether it's just a short period of a solution. I think if we then turn over to a crisis, this often is far heavier, far deeper, often in our gut, if we think about what it looks like, sounds like, feels like in our nervous system. Often we can feel it physically in terms of a lack of energy. We can feel it in our heart in terms of a lack of alignment, maybe with what we're doing every day. And I think importantly, it's hard to see a solution. We on some level feel like I don't know what to do here. I'm unclear. And like I said, it's often characterized by no or low energy, difficulty to find a resolution, maybe a repetition. I've been here before. I thought it was a rough patch, but I keep coming back here. And even if I had resources to be able to throw at it, I don't know what I would do. And ultimately, this requires transformation because ultimately it's that I can't keep living or working like this. And this was, I guess, the stage I came to when I really did the big career pivot out of my corporate. I say 9 to 5, but it's really 8 to 6 or 8 to whatever these days. When I transitioned out of my corporate day job and into working for myself in consulting, because I remember at the time, one of my senior stakeholders basically said, you can do any job in this organization if you want to. And I went, yeah, no, that's not going to solve the problem because I know I'll be back here again in 3 or 6 months' time. And I think that is a really critical piece when we sort of think about what are the different possibilities of how I could go through this, and that none of those will help, is a really good signal that something big is going on and something big needs to change.
Yeah, and Kate, it's such a great example because we often talk about, what's the test? What's the way that I know whether I'm in burnout, rough patch, or this is actually a career crisis? And I think the way we phrase this is, and this is kind of self-coaching, we want to ask ourselves really good questions. And if you think about this and you think about your situation, you go, look, if everything stayed exactly the same, my role, my boss, my company, my work, but I got a really long time to rest and reset, would I want to come back? And if your answer is yes, then you're most likely experiencing a rough patch. You can see that what you're going through, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a solution here. There is things that could be different. You need a bit of time to rest and recover, or some small changes will probably make this, get you back on track. But if your answer is no, you wouldn't want to, then you're far more likely to be in a career crisis. And it doesn't matter how much rest, how much downtime, how much you do around the energy piece. It's actually more about alignment. It's about that sense of purpose and fulfillment. And something deeper is likely calling you, and it's probably the end of a season.
Yeah, I think this is the conversation or the question we ask people at around the end of November, December every year when people come to us and want to resign. And we say, just take it, just hold on to the other side of Christmas. Get that couple of weeks, get that distance, get that slowdown, get that space, and then see how you feel, right? And I think sometimes there is a calibration between thinking about this and actually doing it. I'm not sure always that our answer to that question will be true until we've really done it. I think definitely, and the clients that have actually had that break and come back, they've come back with a really clear decision and a real clear knowing and certainty around where to from here, particularly when they know they need to do something different, right? They need to make a big change. Team, we're going to leave it there. If you've enjoyed today's confidence conversation, we'd love for you to share your comments in the chat feed below. If you know someone, we all come to this point at some point in our career who is experiencing a rough patch or a career crisis. We'd love for you to share this with them. If you want to go deep into some of our work, head over to our YouTube channel, hundreds and hundreds of videos of us talking about various aspects of our work, but some really good pieces this year that is super helpful around navigating some of these pieces. And if and when you're ready to go deeper with your relationship with core confidence, or you'd like to find out more about the Acts of Confidence program, head over to our website, coreconfidence.com.au.